Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. It's good to be with you here on Wednesday morning, or actually Wednesday afternoon now. Wow. Some people we are listening in the morning, so I appreciate that too. It is great to be with you. The Power Lunch Live is here to help you get better at what you do. That's why we have today's best-selling authors, thought leaders, CEOs, people who are doing amazing work in the world that helps us get better at what we do. That's why we do it. Now, the show can be interactive. The way that happens is if you get on the computer and ask your questions of our guest. Get on LinkedIn, type in your question, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of those platforms, because that's where we broadcast, and we monitor those feeds while we're on the air. So please do ask your questions. Now, if you like the program, give it a like or share so that your network can benefit from these conversations as well. Now, today we're going to talk about how marketing has changed in the last couple of months because of COVID and because of the social justice issues that we're facing as a nation. So we're going to talk about that today. And the question I have is, has your strategy changed? How have you adapted to these changes in our society? And so get online, ask your questions. I have Lisa Nirell as my colleague today, as my friend, and we want to pick her brain, get her expertise on these important questions. She is the CEO of EnergizeGrowth, which helps courageous CEOs and chief marketing officers make the leap from order taker to innovator. She's got two great books. I'm going to briefly introduce those. The Mindful Marketer, which is a fantastic book. Go out and get it. We'll probably talk about that today. And then EnergizeGrowth NOW, a marketing guide to a wealthy company and earned a marketing guide to a wealthy company. Lisa, welcome.
Great to see you, Rhett.
Well, thank you. How are you doing?
Today is a good day. Most days are good. Some are not so good, but
fair enough.
Thankfully I get to spend time with you and help as many people as we can today.
Well, that's our goal. That's what we're going to try to do. So let's get to that. So the big question is, has marketing changed the last couple of months? And how, how can companies know what, to do now, how to get their message and their marketing out?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in on this, Rhett, because the first thing I did when COVID-19 hit is I stopped everything that didn't involve, my normal client appointments. And the majority of my clients are chief marketing officers and CEOs of growth-minded companies and organizations. And the first thing I did, other than, of course, protect and preserve my appointments and meetings and commitments to my clients and our CMO peer groups, is I pulled out my calendar and I said, how can I schedule as many productive outreach calls to as many of my past clients and existing clients as possible? And I just asked two questions. What's the most pressing problem you're facing right now? And how can I help? And half the time I could help by referring them outside to other sources, whether that be therapists or a better CFO to help them improve their balance sheet or apply for PPP loans or whatever. So that was the first thing I did. And from that, I really learned a lot about how marketing is changing. So now I'm starting to see that marketing is falling into a couple of categories. We have the marketing leaders who are earning the respect and the confidence of their CEO and their board, and they are doubling down on marketing, and they are investing much more heavily in retaining their best customers, adding more value, and uncovering unmet needs through small, inexpensive tests or experiments. So that's one side where the CEO is stepping forward and saying, wow, marketing really can be a growth contributor to our organization. And that warms my heart because it's unfortunate and it's about bloody time. By the way, I'm known to be a bit of a provocateur. So some of the things I'm saying may be contrary to what people hear from other pundits, but I spent 15 years in a P&L role in marketing and sales before I started my business. So I don't come to this as a researcher. I come to this as a hands-on marketing and salesperson who's made plenty of my own mistakes. But then on the other side, Rhett, what I'm seeing is people with a scarcity mindset who believe, that the sky is falling, we're going to be in a recession for years, and so we better cut back on marketing. And I doubt they will sell for more than pennies on the dollar when the recession comes out. My business is doing the best it has done in many years because I'm really committed to helping those clients get the help they need, even if it doesn't involve, investing in services or coaching or consulting from my firm. Because this is a great time to really increase our focus on our customers and seek out those pockets of opportunity or new customer audiences that our competitors are ignoring because they're cutting back on marketing. I mean, these are golden opportunities. So is marketing changing? Yes. One other thing I'll say and pass it back to you. The best CMOs and the best CEOs are letting marketers work directly with customers. So much like we're seeing in the world of supply chain, where there is this collapse in the supply chains, I am seeing a collapse in the customer value chain, where the old days, especially in B2B, where salespeople protected the customer. And if you need any information about my customers, you go directly through, you have to go through sales. Well, those days are over. It is incumbent on every good marketer to boldly step forward and say, we're teaming up with sales and all of our go-to-market channels. And we need to hear firsthand what the customers are saying and how they're feeling. And to me, that is the essence of mindful marketing.
Why is there this inclination to cut back? Why is it that when companies get into this situation that we're in now, in a recession, in an economy like we're facing, well, you talked about it a little bit, but why is there that inclination to sort of cut the thing that is almost your lifeblood?
Yes, it all starts with the mindset. I think it was Thoreau who once said, "Who you're being is so loud, I cannot hear what you're saying."
Yes. Yeah.
And the same is true for leaders today. We get to choose who we're being. Our choices, we can contract, we can feel that the sky is falling, that there's no money, nobody's spending money. We can believe that, or we can have a growth mindset of there are many opportunities out there. Just look at some of the indicators. I was watching CNBC this morning, and housing permits are up. We're seeing a number of industries that are thriving. Home delivery. We're looking at home repair. The number of people purchasing home improvement projects. Big projects. Like they're making their home more like a spa and a retreat center. And RV sales are booming. So people continue to live their lives, and there are so many opportunities out there for each of us to fuel that happiness and the new mindsets of growth that we're seeing, pop up as a result of the recession. And so I think, and I say this a lot in my book, The Mindful Marketer, I talk about the 5 qualities of mindful marketers. And one of them is aggregation and the ability to look out there and see these new patterns in disparate places. And by the way, you can download some of these bonuses either at themindfulmarketer.com/bonus or read more in detail in my book.
Well, we'll put that link If you can get it to me, I can put that link in the LinkedIn post after the show, so that people can get directly to it, because we have a lot of people that watch the show at their convenience after we're off the air. So let's do that. Let's make it easy for everybody and do that. What is mindful? You talked about mindful marketing. What is mindful marketing?
Yes, and what is it? Plato said the path to wisdom begins with a common set of definitions. Mindful, you and I get to enjoy so many great programs through the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches Program, and many of us in that community seem to be mindfulness practitioners.
Yeah.
I simply define it as non-judgmental, present moment awareness toward yourself and your stakeholders.
Okay.
That's it in a nutshell. So who do I need to be right now in this body, in this moment, in these pandemic protest moments, in order to be effective and be of service to those I serve? That's it in a nutshell. To also diffuse concerns, I don't proselytize mindfulness. I don't recommend it to people. I just practice it myself. I've been practicing a number of different mindfulness programs and habits for about 19 years. And it has gotten me through 9/11. It got me through a number of relocations, because, moving for me is extremely stressful. I know some of you are, expats and love to travel and live in different places. I tend to be I need a home base, a safe, quiet, peaceful home base. And it also has helped me immensely recently through a divorce. So, I love the opportunity to use mindfulness in lieu of pharmacological solutions. And so all I can say is it has worked well for me. And some of the principles have helped my marketing and CEO clients really deepen their relationships, not only with their customers, but also with their teams.
Do you think that I'm fascinated by this sort of evolution that we're having in society, where, and even, I even notice it now that, I spend my money with companies that I believe in and that I understand who they are and where and what their values are and what they believe. And I don't spend my money with companies where I know a CEO does things that I just think are wrong or not great. And I make those conscious choices now. So I sense that there's a shift going on where consumers and even employees are going to demand that companies have this mindfulness about the issues that are important today. Do you agree with that, or am I sort of off base, you think?
No, and you've seen it firsthand, because you've started companies, you've sold companies, and you've witnessed how your customers react to the products that you sold. And being a purpose-driven organization has historically, there's been research proving that those organizations not only retain happier employees, but they also are more profitable. If you don't follow Lisa Earl McLeod on LinkedIn, I highly recommend you do. She has some great books about purpose-driven leadership and purpose-driven selling and noble purpose. And she has many examples of organizations that are purpose-driven. So for me, mindful marketing is a critical tool in the larger toolbox known as being purpose-driven and focused on not only who you are, what do you stand for, but also what do you not stand for? What do
Yeah,
you not stand for?
maybe even
So
more importantly.
absolutely. So it's important to understand both. Now, I moved into a little town home out here in Virginia a while back, and part of the reason I moved here is convenience. And one of the things I love is on one side of my home, I have this gorgeous forest with, snakes and rabbits and woodchucks and everything else. But then within 300 yards or so, I can walk over to this beautiful town center. And it's been really a nice mix. And in the town center, I'm a pretty active open water swimmer, and I work out pretty frequently. I love working out. And there's an LA Fitness over there.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you heard that they filed for bankruptcy, and they're closing all these locations. I think they're an example of what not to do, because they made it very difficult for me to pause my membership. They were closed for 4 months. I wanted to pause my membership. And then last weekend, you may have seen this in the Wall Street Journal, they laid a lot of people off on a Zoom call. Yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, so what part of being a mindful employer is missing here? And I got so much pushback when I posted this from people, and they said, oh, well, it's virtually impossible to lay people off one at a time, or, oh, we want to control the message. We don't want to get the bad word out. And I thought, what on earth could possibly go wrong by making individual phone calls to the people you have to release versus we are going to be efficient and lay everyone off at one time? And I think Uber did the same thing. I'm still stumped about what they were truly wanting to achieve. But that was a bad marketing decision, not just a bad culture and purpose decision. Right. Because now you have non-brand ambassadors all out there not singing your praises.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm going to renew my membership there. I mean, I'm really hurt by how they treated those hardworking people that care about health and wellness, which is what we need more than ever right now. Yeah.
Well, somebody made a decision to be efficient and didn't take into account the human cost and the awful marketing value behind it, right? And that's just it makes, I understand it, but it doesn't make sense to, particularly if you're going out of business and you're filing for bankruptcy and you want to recover. It doesn't make that job of recovering any easier. I mean, it doesn't. And it puts people like you in a bad position of, do I get in my car now and go to another club? Because it's not I don't believe in how you do things. So I totally get that.
Have you seen that in any companies or recent examples? Because I'm also a big fan of Janusian thinking. Sometimes I'm able to clarify my own beliefs and values by seeking out the opposite of what I believe and value. So, it's kind of the two-headed Roman gods, right? So I am grateful for them teaching me a lesson about how I would not want to lead if I had full-time employees. So there is a lesson there. And, as I've learned from some of my own mindfulness teachers, these are teachers who step in front of us and are there to give us an important lesson. But what are you seeing?
I have a company that I work with, and I'm not going to mention their name, but they did have to make layoffs. And so instead of actually calling, the CEO went to each one of their homes and in the driveway said, I have to lay you off at least temporarily. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. We're trying to save the company. And he went, I mean, you couldn't he wanted to be face to face with them as best possible. He didn't even want to do it on the phone. And I think he had 25 people that he had to let go. And it took him almost a week, but he went to each one of their homes and did it. And I thought that was a nice way to do it. I thought it was an honest, he showed that he cared, and he arranged time to go see every single one of them. And I really
applaud that. I really applaud that. And people will remember him or her for what they did. I mean, that tells me a lot about his character.
He didn't avoid the bad news. It was a hard thing for him. I think he's got about 100 employees. He had to have about a 25% reduction. I think that he's going to probably end up hiring those people back, and they will want to come. I think most of them will want to come back to work for him. I think so.
I would.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this: you work with a lot of CEOs and CMOs, and you like to talk about you want to work with courageous CMOs and CEOs. What does that mean? And talk about energized growth in your company and how you help them even be more courageous. Or kind of tell me about that. Tell me what that means.
Let me start with a story. I work with, as you said, I work with courageous CEOs and CMOs who want to accelerate growth and marketing innovation. And I like to share an example so we can ground it in reality. I like concepts, but then I like to apply them. I've been working for a couple of years with a first-time CMO of a technology company. They're award-winning. They created a new market out of nothing. They have extremely high customer retention, but they knew it could be better. Mm-hmm. And the CMO noticed that the CEO was not really leading from the front. They were kind of letting things run themselves and hiring smart people to make sure that research and development was working well, that sales was working well, and so on. And the CMO said, we're leaving way too much money on the table. We're not aligned across functions. We're making a lot of mistakes. Things are slipping through the cracks. And we have too many priorities. We have 14, they had 14 priorities.
Wow.
And a very lean staff. So they came to me, the CMO said, I'm pretty good at marketing, but I want to do more. I want to give more to this company. So I worked alongside him as both an advisor and a mentor. And together we brought the different teams together across departments. They reframed their vision, their values. And from that, they were able, I showed them how to prioritize their goals. We got them down from 14 goals to 4 goals. Within 5 months, it was great because within 5 months, they grew their revenues by 30% and their net promoter scores went up 6 points.
Really?
Yeah. And because people were more focused, they were more aligned. And the big exciting thing that happened is they stopped being all product focused. They went from being kind of a product leadership culture to a customer intimacy culture. And the customers became some of their biggest advocates and salespeople. And that story continues today. They're still thriving. And so I see what's possible with marketing-oriented people, with marketing leaders. I see the potential in them. And if they're courageous enough to take some risks, to tell the CEO what's working and what's not working, we can really be a powerful team. So I think the courage really takes on a variety of qualities. First, I believe that being provocative is part of being courageous. Not saying what's popular, but saying what needs to be said. Yeah. And the second is, that CMO is willing to be fired. Like he went into the CEO and he said, this shoot from the hip style of leadership really doesn't work for us anymore. It did when we were a tiny company, but Not anymore. Also being willing to reinvent your role and reinvent yourself, let alone your services and product portfolio, and say, what are we willing to jettison? It's just not serving us anymore. And if anyone's watching this and you have not taken a hard look at what it's time to jettison in your organizations, you are setting yourself up for post-pandemic stress. I have an actual planning model that we created for CEOs and CMOs to use in their planning sessions. So if you want that model, you can drop me an email to lisa@lisanirell.com, and I'll send that to you as a gift. It's a great way, again, to get focused on who are we now and how do we want to look differently post-pandemic protest.
How do you talk about that evaluation or that a little bit? Because how did you get them from 14 goals to 4? That's cutting a lot, and I'm sure that was painful to.
It was painful at times. However, we spent a lot of time before we started the growth planning initiative, where we were actually working together over a series of 4 months. We spent a ton of time in the first month and a half or so just getting to know the members of what we call the change leaders. We had a group of about 8 or 9 people who we just spent a lot of time with, explaining what's the current state, where do we want to go, what's in it for you, why does your voice count, why do we need you to support us? Because we're going to get into some meetings and it's going to be contentious. We're going to find some sacred cows that no one wants to let go of because it's their baby and they wrote the code, and we're not here to make everybody's egos look good. We're here to improve your customer's condition, number one, and number two, to make this a stronger company. And who's with us on that? Right. And, so it took we just did a lot of groundwork at the beginning to earn their commitment, not their compliance, but their commitment to this new and improved way of being and this new and improved growth plan. And I was really, really happy that it paid off.
Well, it sounds like you got their buy-in. It sounds like people understood what that really meant, and that in order for that to happen, they were going to have to be committed to losing some things maybe that they had thought were important to them.
Yes. And, this isn't for everybody. When I advise clients, I tell them up front, I am a truth teller. I'm going to observe things and I'm going to call them out. And I'm not trying to offend you or upset you, but there will be times you will be angry with me or you'll be rolling your eyes at me. And I'm just going to present new opportunities or new approaches, and you can choose to accept them and implement them or not. It's, you have the ultimate say.
Right. What is, talk about your book a little bit, The Mindful Marketer, and how to stay present and profitable. I think we're inundated with data. We're inundated with technology. So talk about why you wrote that book and what you were trying to help CMOs and CEOs accomplish by, focusing on and staying present. I think because that's a fascinating topic to me.
Well, I'm glad that you find it fascinating. And before we dive into this, did we get any questions that people want us to address before I dive into that?
We've got some comments and stuff. So I think that let's go to the book. We have some comments, but mostly agreed. Yes, that's right. Kind of.
Okay. Well, thank you all for agreeing or disagreeing. I'm a big believer in polarizing the market. if I get a whole bunch of, oh, this really sucks, I'm not going to listen to any of this. And then I get a bunch of, hearts. If you all just click on the heart, that's great. The worst part is if we get, well, it was okay. It was all right.
We're getting the thumbs up and the clap thing, so we're good.
All right, good. So I remember when I worked with my book coach, Mark Levy, I said to Mark, I don't know what my next book is going to be about. And he has this uncanny way of bringing out my best ideas. And somehow we had gotten to this point during one of our coaching meetings where he said, wait a second, you've been practicing mindfulness for 14 years and your clients know nothing about it. And I said, no, I don't want them to know that I practice mindfulness because I don't have a Messiah complex, if they ask me anything, I'll answer their questions. But I don't want to be one of those people that is just, I'm a hammer and everything is a nail, right? So he said, but Lisa, mindfulness, there are over 10,000 studies now on the benefits of mindfulness and how it rewires our neurotransmitters, how it allows us to eradicate the old habits such as multitasking and is ultimately designed to reduce human suffering. He said, how would you not want to help people and get the word out? And then he also recognized how passionate I was about marketing and how marketing can change the world for the better. He said, why don't you write a book about that? So there I was. Yeah. And so what I did is I designed the book completely differently from my first book, such that each chapter is bite-sized. I call it Twitter-sized chapters, ranging from the definition of mindfulness. Why should people care about mindfulness right now? What are some of the qualities of mindfulness and some of the marketing leaders in the world who are using mindfulness to improve their own condition as well as their customers' conditions? And then how do you act mindfully with your stakeholders? So I have a whole section in there under on how to work better with your VP of sales, how to be more mindful with your CFO, your key executives on the board, with your CEO. And so these are now timeless principles and advice that people can use. I think I was 5 years too early writing the book because it's now experiencing a resurgence because people are looking for non-pharmacological solutions. Now, what I'm going to say is not happy news. I have been immersed in observing organizations. I've worked with hundreds of organizations now on growth and innovation. And of course, I have my own community of healers and advisors. And I can tell you we are in for a wave, if not a tsunami, of a mental health crisis in the world.
Yeah.
So I am taking off my humble hat where I don't want to tell anyone about mindfulness. And now my mission is, how can people who are suffering find some solace and some peace through mindfulness? And if I can make sure this reaches as many millions of people as possible and helps them find some balance, some focus, and some peace, I now realize that that is my job.
Yeah, I mean, I had a program the other day, and we had Sharon Melnick, who you know, and we had another physician from New York, psychologist, and she was talking about how there was a study recently, and I can't remember who did it. I don't know if it was one of the big medical schools, but I think that mental health issues are up like 20%. Stress and anxiety and all kinds of other things that this pandemic and all the last few months has caused. And so, our conversations were centered around as employers, we're going to have to deal with this, right? And we're going to have to deal with all the other stresses that people are dealing with now. We're not going to be able to avoid having some policies and things in place to help people get through this. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. And so I think you're absolutely right. And I think that, organizations are going to have to deal with it internally and externally. But and I think some of that is coming to be mindful that these issues exist, and mindful that your employees and your teams are going through, these additional stresses in life. And anyway, I'm kind of getting off track there, but what you said, I think, is very, very important. And I think, I was going to ask you about some of the challenges for leadership today. I think that's one of the major ones.
Yes, I see the same thing happening, and I'm begging any leaders who are watching this. Again, you can get a lot of free resources on my website and my blog. I would like to shift the consciousness of our society from thinking that wellness is, or mindfulness practices, whether it be yoga, walking in nature, Reiki, breath work, meditation, whatever mindfulness concepts or practices resonate with you. I would like leaders to stop calling these things soft skills or nice to have if we have time or budget available. These are thriving skills. These, as I've learned from Dr. Julie Rosenberg in our community, these are not nice to haves, these are must haves. So, if you're a money person, if you believe that businesses are only existing for the purposes of improving profits, if you still believe that, then let's look through the lens of how about we reduce our employee workers' compensation costs, or our litigation costs, our lawsuit costs, the cost of losing really good people, the attrition costs.
Okay. Well, the days people take off, the absenteeism, the sick days,
Yes. Or I talked to one of my best clients the other day, and they said, we're thinking of changing out our marketing agency. And I said, wow, they're a pretty good agency. What's going on? They said they can't keep their employees. Like, they've had a turnover of their accounts managers 4 times in the last year. They can't keep people, and my client is a marquee brand. They're a multi-billion-dollar organization. And they're like, we don't want to be associated with a company that clearly cannot keep good people. Yeah. So what are the brand implications of your just focusing on profits?
Yeah, no, that's brilliant advice. And I think something that hopefully CEOs and leaders sort of begin to understand even more after this crisis. And what's one thing out of this crisis? We'll ask you a couple questions around this.
You're full of questions today, Rhett. You had your coffee. You had a lot of. Did you drink your coffee this morning, or are you just naturally full of great, curious questions?
Well, I drank my sweet tea, and
your sweet
tea. It's my one indulgence, and so I'm raring to go. What? As a good Southern boy, I can never drink coffee. I never got into coffee, but I love my glass of tea in the morning. What scares you about the crisis and what's going on, and what are you really excited about? What do you hope comes out of, what do you hope for companies and business to sort of take away from this crisis?
Well, I'll give you, so the first question is, what am I fearing the most?
Yeah, what worries you about all of this? And I mean, this is a 30,000 view kind of question. is there something in society or things that are going on that bother you and worry you? And then what are you really encouraged by and think is exciting that's going to come out of this?
Well, my fear as a leader is that I allow the fear to control me. So that the fear takes over and I forget or lose the ability to transmute my fear into right action.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a lot of fear about the shutdown or the economy, because I have learned through my mindfulness practices, the best thing I can do is take care of the things that Lisa can control. Where can I have an impact? So if I am able to continuously, when I do wake up in the morning, and yesterday I woke up letting fear have its way with me. And, I gave it an hour or two, let it have its way with me for a while. And then I said, okay, it's time for you to go back. And I did my meditation and my journaling and my affirmation. And I was able to transmute that back into right action. So my fear is that for myself. Since and this is just one piece of advice that might help some of our listeners today, is I just continue to limit the amount of time I spend watching the news, because the news gets advertisers by preying on fear. And again, I don't believe in spending my time living in fear. I am focused on the future. What's next? So I'm constantly in this transforming from fear to the future, from fear to the future. So that's where personally I spend my time. So, I'm fortunate. I'm about 80% of the time I'm in that above the line, high vibration. What's the future? Who can I serve today? So like I said, 80% of the time I get up in the morning and it's like, oh my gosh, who do I get to serve today? Who do I get to spend time with? Who do I love? I get to spend time in the Marshall Goldsmith 100 coaches community. I get to write this article. I'm starting my LinkedIn Live next week. So, or the 20% of the time when I get up and I go, oh, damn, it's a slog, enemy territory. Oh my gosh, what did so-and-so say on the news today? So, and that's again where all of my mindfulness tools can be very helpful, of walking myself off the ledge and coming back into a place of possibility. I hope this is helpful for the group. Do we have any questions or comments coming in?
I had an amen to that last thing about the cliff, I think. No, I think that's great advice. I think that's we all have to learn how to walk ourselves back from. I know I do it when I watch the news and something has been said or done, and my head explodes for a minute, and then you have to say, okay, chill, get back in the right, and I think we all have to sort of catch ourselves and it's and be aware that we're in that negative headspace, right? And that we have to sort of reel it back in and get back to a positive place to be productive. So I completely appreciate that. And I think that's very, very important to keep in mind, no matter what we do, and no matter what field we're in, no matter if we're a leader or we just have to get up and go to work every day. I think that's good. That's just good, solid advice for anybody. What sort of a final thought from you? What is your advice for companies that are struggling to get a handle on where to go now, how to pivot, how to make that shift in your marketing and your message, and how to, is there, I mean, you've got a long history, just not only as an entrepreneur yourself, but working with multiple companies, hundreds of companies, I'm sure by now. And you've been through these sort of transition times. What's your best advice for our company that's trying to figure this out, how to navigate this, and to, where do you even start in that shifting gears, shifting mindset, shifting direction? And how do you bring people along with that change? You talked a little bit about it took you months to sort of get that company, and I thought that was really interesting. To sort of narrow their focus. I mean, is this something that is that something you can answer? I mean, does that make sense as a question? Because I think a lot of people are just struggling right now. They're struggling on where to go, how to handle this, and they are still processing where things are going to go, right? And I think that's a hard point to be in. And any guidance there?
Yes, I believe, Rhett, we're in the 4th month of the pandemic. Now we also have the extra layer of the protests and the civil unrest happening around the world. I start with the leader. How can I strengthen my muscles as a resilient, courageous leader? And one of the places I got my strength, and a lot of my clients are getting their strength, is they're using this time and reaching out much more regularly to their customers and their stakeholders. They're they're holding off on their programmatic advertising. They're holding off on their search engine optimization projects. They're taking some of that funding and saying, what if we just actually talk to our customers? Another beautiful example is what Bozzuto did. They're a multifamily and construction development company. They've been a client of mine for many years, and they're based in the Washington, D.C. area. And they have over 70,000 rental homes under management, 70,000.
Wow.
They called every single resident during the pandemic to ask how they were doing and how could they be helpful. So if they can reach 70,000 people, what would our excuse be as business leaders? What could possibly hold us back from those two things? I think they're parallel efforts, right? Yeah. How do I maximize my own self-care, whatever that means to you, whether it's 5 minutes a day of meditation, walk in the woods, loving on your family, singing, dancing, whatever it takes, whatever fuels your soul, so that I show up as a leader who is calm and focused, while also fueling that energy and excitement by spending time with the people that keep your lights on, not only your existing customers, but your future customers. Where are those pockets of opportunity? Let's start some experiments, much like one of my other clients in the software business did. And now, they came up with a freemium product in 8 weeks, and created a new market opportunity outside their normal audience of professional associations. So I mean, it's there, to me, they're parallel efforts, and you can't cut back on one of those two areas. Both of them have equal value. So and again, people can reach out to me if they want examples or some resources. I even have some planning tools that allow them to be asking the right questions right now.
Well, let's make sure we get people directed on those, to those resources in the LinkedIn feed. Because I think that's really important. I think the thing I would add to that is, I think get your team involved. I mean, ask your team to be part of the solution. Ask your team to put their ideas on the table. And I think that you by including them in the solution to how to make the shift or how to reimagine the company, get them involved and and see if you can take it back to, I remember day one of my company, the toy company. I remember getting the keys to the door, to the office, to the warehouse. There were no rules, there were no processes, there were no, this is the way we do things.
It was greenfield. It was kind of like greenfield, right?
Absolutely, and that's a different position than we were in 10 years later, when we had manuals and we had, the way, a culture, right? And I think if you can get your team to kind of go back to day one and say, let's reimagine, let's throw out the playbook and rewrite it. I think that's a really brilliant way to start. And I really do appreciate your time today. One other quick thing, and we're running long, but what's the best advice you ever got?
Wow, that's a great question. Can I just put a PS on what you just said too?
Yes, ma'am. Please do.
I want to play off that before I forget it. And that is, if you are going to ask your employees, reimagine, give everyone a very specific question. If we were to reinvent our company right now, what would we create? And the only other thing I would warn people of is make sure you gather their answers anonymously so that the smartest person or the most senior person in the room doesn't get additional weight, and that there isn't any bias towards the answers. So make sure you democratize the process.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So that was my little caveat around that. So the best advice I ever got. Yes. So my mother's name was Josephine.
Okay.
Josephine Pandolfo Lazat. That was her name. And the best advice she ever gave me that I follow to this day, she passed away about 15 years ago. She said, always write thank you notes.
My mother would approve. My mother would approve too.
And I would watch her once a week at the kitchen table writing thank you notes. And I thought, why are you bothering? Well, I'm doing it today. People still love the outreach. Every week I write thank you notes, and it beautifully complements my commitment to mindfulness, because having that attitude of gratitude keeps me operating at this level as opposed to at a level of fear. So I encourage people, if you haven't done it, and I'm not talking about emails or text messages. I'm saying literally find someone's address and handwrite a short note to recognize them for something special that they did.
That's brilliant. Great way to end it. Thank you so much. Hey, you have a LinkedIn Live show you're starting. You want to talk about that for a second?
LinkedIn Live next week, Friday, the 26th, I believe, 26th of June at 1:30 p.m. And we're going to be talking throughout the summer and fall about, we're going to showcase mindful marketing. What is it? What are some of the best companies doing to demonstrate mindful marketing? What are some of the things you can do right now to shift into this new world of mindful marketing that's happening and to join the movement? So I invite people to follow me, and please go to Lisa Nirell, to my page, and just make sure you're following me so that you are alerted. And Rhett, I hope you'll be a guest on my show as well.
I'm happy to be, and I'm happy to promote your show. That sounds like a great topic.
Well, thank you. It's been a delight to be here today. And if anyone has questions, just contact me, lisa@lisanirell.com.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for spending some time with us today here on Power Lunch. You can look at our schedule on powerlunch.live. Powerlunch.live, that's our website. I've got a great remaining part of the week. Hope you join us for our show tomorrow. We've got Marshall Goldsmith on Friday, and we'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon. Have a great day.
Thanks, Rhett.